Hey y'all, come check out my garden. Let's start over here because I noticed the sun's starting to come out and I don't know if y'all can see as well when it starts popping through those trees. Check this out. Look at the crimson clover. It is broken down so much. And in between, I don't know if y'all can see, I have sunflowers poking up. And over here, I've kind of created these little nests. I pulled aside the crimson clover that's kind of breaking down, and I've got nasturtiums here at the base of all my sunflowers. And the reason I put nasturtiums down, they act as a decoy. That's the goal anyway. That is what I've read. I'm still a new gardener. I'm still learning. So we will see if this works. My sunflowers got attacked heavily by aphids, which just took them out and they started looking horrible. So I'm gonna try this. I've got the nasturtiums, which aphids love. The goal is for the aphids to go to the nasturtiums instead of going and eating my sunflowers. Some clover. I'm just gonna let it die back and let it do its thing like it would in nature. And hopefully next year I will get more crimson clover that will pop up, because it's fun that it pops up in the winter time, it pops up in the fall when my garden's just really dying back and I'm not getting a lot of greenery. And then of course in May, I guess they started popping up in April, a lot of them, you start getting these lovely crimson colored flowers. And it's just fun. I loved it. So check this out, guys. These are bolted onions. All of these. And look at this little film. It has this interesting rubber sac that it's in at first, and then it slowly busts through. I think it's just kind of beautiful. These onions, I don't know how long you've been watching or not, but in the fall I did kind of a little experiment. I'm using onions all the time for cooking, so I decided, let's see if this will work. I cut off the bottom of an onion, many onions as you see, I did it with a lot, and I set that in water for a little while until it started to sprout. And then when it started to sprout, I put it out here, and guess what? It grew. But we did get a little bit of a heat spell. Oh, look at this little guy. Oh, where'd he go? He's too fast. I don't know if you can see him. He's so small. He's tiny, tiny, tiny little bee. He's a good insect. Got a bit of a heat spell, and these guys bolted. I think because they were further along. I had planted them first, and they ended up bolting. These ones, I didn't plant them until later. You can kind of see I have onions here between everything. This is buckwheat, by the way. Buckwheat puts phosphorus into the soil, and so I like using it a lot because it's also a very quick crop. As you see, it's already producing flowers. I maybe planted this 4 or 5 weeks ago, and it's already doing its thing. So yeah, in between here, I also got some beans. This is a bush bean growing here. It's old cabbage. More onions growing on each one of these rows. Even some over here between my fava beans. It's just some random wheat here that I've kept growing. And it's a sunflower. If you notice, my garden is quite mixed up. And I did that on purpose. For one, it's very beautiful. I like the way it looks. It's just not boring with just one thing in a row. It's all mixed up and beautiful. Oh, look, see? These are carrots. These ones did so well that I went ahead and decided to let them bolt. And I'm going to collect the seeds. I'm also going to collect the seeds from these onions, because why not? We'll plant them next year and see how they do. Or mixing things up, whatever you want to call it, is good for bug confusion. I know it sounds weird. When I first heard that, I thought that sounded absolutely crazy. So I looked it up and tried to figure out what's the science behind that exactly. Well, there is science behind it. And what it is a bug needs to land on its host plant so many times before the little mechanism goes off for it to start to lay eggs. So if you mix things up, if you've got tomatoes, but then you mix it up with some borage and some marigolds and nasturtiums, and that little bug's hopping around, it has to hop around so often, and it's hopping on tomato, and it hops on a borage, and you get the idea. When you mix things up, it does create a little bit of bug confusion, and you can get less eggs being laid in your garden. That's the idea anyway. I haven't tried this yet, so this is my experiment. I will let you guys know how it works. So far, I have noticed it working very well. In fact, this year for my garden, I have noticed a balance between, yes, I do have some bad bugs, but I have enough good stuff like snakes, the good snakes that you want in your garden, like the brown duckies and the ringnecks that love slugs, and the bad bugs in your garden, they'll eat them up. Also tons of toads and frogs and spiders, which you know you want in your garden, believe it or not. I've got tons of little spiders running around on the ground, and I've just found, I've also seen tons of birds flying around and coming in here and also doing their little job. So all in all, I have seen some bad pests, but for the most part, I feel like the good things in the garden are taking care of it for me, which was not the case last year. Oh, I was overrun by bugs, the bad ones, and they were just taking out. I was constantly out here. We'll talk more about that later. Let me see. Check these potatoes out. I planted these at the very, very beginning of spring. And you see they're already starting to flower. Now, when they do start to flower, you can start picking them, but they'll be quite small. They'll be on the smaller end. Although I did peek at these just to be curious, and they're about, I only have one hand here. Let me set this down. So the one I was checking out is about this big, which is pretty big. Well, which is pretty good, I guess. So we'll see. I plan on just allowing everything to die back, and then we'll harvest these. And we'll see how that goes, because I've had a lot of issues in my garden with blight and different sicknesses because we are in the forest. We don't get as much airflow. As you see, we're surrounded by trees, and they're all, well, also in the south, so we get lots of rain, lots of heat, which creates the humidity. And all this stuff is exactly what diseases love, and they will thrive and really can wreck your garden, and it's not fun. So this year, honestly, we've been getting a lot of dry weather, which is perfect because then I can be in control of how much water these guys get. And that has been going really well. I have noticed some pests, but not very many. If you see here, this damage, these are army worms that I've been having issues with, but it's not that bad. It's just been on a few plants, just these front ones, honestly. The rest of them, I haven't noticed any. But what I just do, y'all, I just squish them. If you don't want to squish them with your hand, I'll take a leaf, you know, and I squish them between. That might gross you guys out, but honestly, being a gardener, I've gotten quite used to handling bugs, whether that's squishing them or feeding them to the chickens. I noticed out here yesterday, I don't know if I see them right now because it's early in the morning, I noticed little daddy longlegs. I was so excited because that's also a great bug that you want to see in your garden. They love aphids. I don't see them anymore, but they were cute. They were cute little ones. Y'all, I need to fix this. Look at this. This arch is it's a little bit crooked, don't you think? Don't worry, we'll fix it. Look at this. Isn't this a pretty nasturtium? This is a salmon color. I've got the nasturtiums here growing. This is borage, just kind of peeking its little head here. I'm going to be putting, my tomatillos are going to go on this arch. Look, I've cut in these sugar snap peas that I had planted in the fall. Some of them are starting to come back, and I've been snacking on them. They're quite good, really. So over here on this row, I've got a mixture of peppers. Some are quite small, look. See that little guy? Still growing. I kind of clear out a section of the buckwheat around the plant so it's still getting plenty of sun. And within here, I also have a combination of beans as well. You can't see them very well because it looks similar to the buckwheat, y'all. So I've got an alteration of beans and then peppers. And then obviously I have some onions in here, which I will eventually harvest. I don't know. I think I'm supposed to wait until they brown and flop over. But I've never done onions before, so I'm just learning as I go. And this row, I've got an alteration of crookneck squashes and zucchinis with also beans. And then I've got some random carrots in here with the borage. I mean, not the borage, the buckwheat. I keep wanting to call it borage. So here is just a random, well, this is just cilantro. It's bolting already, you see. And also at this section, this is random purple kale from the fall. More onions. Here are more sunflowers. See, I planted these earlier, that's why they're bigger. And at the base of each sunflower, I have a nasturtium plant as well, along with some borage. And this is a tomato. I think this is the, oh goodness, what is it? Ah, black. This is a black cherry. This is my cherry tomato arch. You see here, got more of the borage and sunflowers and the tomatoes. Looks like I have a random sugar snap pea growing here. So I love mixing stuff up. It's fun. I think it looks pretty. Oh, look at this. This is fennel. Tomato, fennel, sunflower, nasturtium. And then these are carrots and my bolted onions. Now generally you don't want to put fennel in with your tomatoes. It produces something that puts out into the soil that actually stunts your tomatoes. But in this case, I've just been growing this since fall and I'm just kind of curious. I need to look up to see when I can pull it up. I might be able to pull it up by now, I don't know. Never grown fennel before. These are my fava beans, y'all. They're getting huge. It's another tomato, the borage. But yeah, these, I love this cilantro. Isn't it pretty? Look at this. I love that. This is the slow bolt cilantro. Well, I would not say that it was slow to bolt at all. I didn't see a difference between other kinds. These fava beans have gotten quite tall. Some have kind of come down. Just kind of letting them go at this point. This was just a fun cover crop and another experiment to see. And I would like to let these dry out. I've heard that if you let them dry out until they get yellow, that you can then pick them at that point and then air dry them for a few weeks. But we'll see. Since they are getting so tall, I worry about them drowning out the airflow for my tomatoes and causing issues. So I'll let them go for a little bit longer, but the tomatoes seem to be doing fine so far. They seem to be getting enough light, even with the crowded fava beans. But it is gonna get to a certain point where I'm gonna need to take care of that. This is my grape. This is a Vanessa grape. You see the paint on it, y'all? I finally painted these, but it was a bit of a drippy mess. They are starting to produce grapes, see? They have their little flowers. That will be fun. I've got some nasturtiums at the base of those as well. I'm going to be planting peanuts along the section here. In fact, I'll show you all that in a minute. I'll show you the different peanut plants that I've got that I'm going to be growing here. This is all garlic. I planted all this last November, I think. I wasn't able to find any garlic at any of the seed garlics. So I just went to the store and I think I spent about 30 bucks and I bought a big bag of garlic. I cracked them open and I let them soak in a large jar for about 24 hours. And some of them already started to make little roots, which is kind of neat. And I planted them, and this is what you got. I've read that they should be ready to harvest in June. Right now it's May. So we'll see. I was kind of taking a little peek, and they are producing bulbs. So that's exciting. I'm excited. I've never grown garlic before. And this row just has more fava beans and tomatoes, and this is my bean trellis. Isn't that neat? Big old teepee. Now I've got all the beans growing at the bottom here, and then I mixed in some nasturtiums, and these are all climbing beans. Some of them are starting to climb, see? Sad story. Last week I had an appointment really early in the morning, so the girls and I left when it was still dark out, and we didn't get home until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I came home, I got out of the car, and I looked at my garden and I kind of squinted, and it's far away, I don't have the best eyesight, and I was like, there's chickens in my garden. All of our chickens, 23 of them, were in the garden just running amok all day. And I didn't know the morning of, because when we left it was still dark. So I drop everything, like I drop my purse, and I run out there with the kids, and we start catching chickens. And at one point I'm just like, I have to go see the damage, I have to see what they've done. And I start walking around the garden, and I see how many tomatoes they massacred, and all of my, not all of them, but quite a few of my paste tomatoes, which I was very excited about this season to make my own sauces and such, they ate those, quite a few of them. And then my bean trellis, they had gone after my beans quite a bit. Oh, y'all, I was very sad. In fact, I was sobbing while I was trying to see if I could piece together my tomatoes and salvage some of them. I was able to salvage a couple of them. See, this one he got all bit up, but it's coming back. This is a mushroom basket. This one was so big and beautiful, and then it just got, bit down to a little thing, but it is coming back. So I was able to salvage some of them, but I was pretty sad. I told Nathan that I'm just gonna burn it all. I'm just gonna burn my garden. I'm giving up. Of course, that was just me being dramatic. I didn't really do that. And the next day, I didn't go in the garden at all the rest of that day, and the next day I came out. And I realized, it's not as bad as I thought. Luckily, I did have a lot of tomatoes still in my greenhouse that I had not put out. So I was able to go throughout and kind of fill in the gaps of places that had gotten massacred. And with the beans, I don't know if y'all remember, if you're watching then, but I had planted the Vanessa beans. No, what are they called? The Venice, Marvel of Venice, that's what they were called, around here. But honestly, only a few of those came up. I might have planted them too early because I get excited, and this often sometimes does happen. And so I've been throwing more beans out here. So I think I've thrown 2 more varieties out here. I mean, I don't really throw them out here. I do plant them. And so I've got plenty popping up, you see. So it worked out. I've put enough beans in the soil here that I've got enough popping out. So that worked out. It all worked out. And Nate fixed. So what happened was, the night before, I had thrown out the fermented chicken feed that I feed the chickens that evening. And that night, I did shut the gate. So shut it. But this thing had remained open, you see? So yeah, it looked like it was shut, but this thing must have been like this. And that evening, we got some rain and some wind, and it blew the gate open. So then this gate is open and all the chickens just came out into the garden. So what Nate did for me is he made these little springs, so they just automatically want to shut on their own. Thank you, Nathan. He solved my problem for me, because I cannot have chickens coming out in the garden, and sometimes I make mistakes and I don't check the gate. For whatever reason, I'm in a hurry. So it all worked out. It all worked out. And you see, y'all, this is the area where all my climbing squashes, melons are growing. I've got my moon and stars here, mixed in again with some borage. This is random pumpkins that I had extra of, and then the rest are more moon and stars. And I think the Charleston Gray watermelon. But each one of these has a different type of squash, and they're doing great. You see, this one, I'd mowed the lawn the other day. I put all my lawn clippings down on my garden along with my leaves that I collect, and then I also put all the chicken bedding from the chicken coop. I put that down on my garden as well, and I just let it all break down naturally how it would in nature. I'll talk more about that later, but look, this is the borage. I like how they're already starting to head up. And this is squash. Which this one? This is the Jarondale. It's a pretty green one. Like, there's like a pretty green pumpkin. Yeah, they are all doing really well. And what I'm gonna do with these is, we've got all the cattle panels already. We just need to put them up. I see here we've got more panels. This is one of them. Each one of these will have a cattle panel so that they can climb and hopefully get more airflow. We'll see how it goes. And one of these, for fun, I want to kind of see how I had this idea. One of these, I'm not sure which one, maybe this front one, I'm going to put a cattle panel on top. And so we'll have it flat above, quite high up, so that you can walk under. And I'm excited. I think it's gonna work out okay. We'll see. Because last year I had the black plastic, and I was thinking it was gonna be great, because when I didn't have the black plastic, the weeds just overrun, and it was absolutely ridiculous. I couldn't even get out here without getting chiggers. So we decided to do the plastic, which I thought would be amazing, but it was a nightmare. It really seemed to create an environment that the bugs loved, and the squashes didn't seem to be getting as much water as they would have been. All in all, it didn't work out. So I ripped it all up, and I decided I'm gonna make these nice big mounds, which I created from the pond over here. I'll show that to you later. But I dug up all this dirt, put it out here, and also in the fall I threw out tons of clover seeds. All this stuff that you see down on the ground is Dutch clover. I got rid of my grass. I love Dutch clover. For one, it does not get as tall as grass does. It puts nitrogen into the soil, and then when the clover blooms, it's just beautiful, and it really attracts the pollinators into my garden, in my yard as well. I guess I can show you all that later. Is my actual yard around my house is Dutch clover. It is not grass. I pull that grass up like a weed. See this? In the spring, early spring this year, I went ahead and planted a bunch of Dutch clover out here as well. Isn't that pretty? And it's surprisingly grows pretty well in the shade. So all of this out here at the base there is Dutch clover. You just can't see it because I got some overgrown. It's quite overgrown out here, y'all. I need to get out here with the weed whacker. But it's just not fun weed whacking. Now, as you see, this is where I got all the dirt for my garden, for my squash garden. Yes, I love the clover out here. It just looks lovely. highly recommend getting rid of your grass. Grass is overrated. Smells good out here, y'all. You see these trees here? The sun's coming out here, but there's these trees right here. I don't know what they're called. These flowering trees. I don't know what they are. They smell so good. They smell so sweet. Oh, I see a cardinal. Y'all, I need to do a bird video where I just catch all these birds in the garden and around the house because they're everywhere. I don't know what she was doing. I saw her yesterday. Oh, there's the male. The female yesterday was diving down in here and picking up this chicken bedding. I'm assuming they're managing their little nest. Another thing I've noticed a lot this year in my garden is the birds. All in all, getting rid of the plastic, really creating a more natural environment. I'm not spraying it all this year either. Last year I got a little bit nuts with the spray. I sprayed neem oil and copper fungicide because I had so many issues with the darn funguses and the bugs, and honestly it just made it worse. It didn't do anything. The diatomaceous earth, same thing. You're also, yes, you're killing some of the bad bugs, but you're killing the good stuff too. So down here in my soil, I've got the chicken bedding here. At the base of that, I think I had some leaves, and I just let everything break down. This works for me. It's easier than to have a compost pile somewhere else. I like that it just breaks down right here in its environment where it's going to live, and it creates a lovely little ecosystem for the little good bugs that like to break things down into organic matter, like you've got your pill bugs, your little roly-polies. I've seen the frogs really love it, and the snakes. So I've got tons of roly-polies down here in the earth. You lift it up. So all in all, I'm very happy with this method. Look at this cabbage. I did not have luck at all with cabbage, y'all. It bolted, it got too hot, and then it would get too cold, and then it would get hot. It was just all over the place. So, and all of a sudden, these started just popping up. This one's huge. Not producing a head yet, but at this point I'm just gonna kind of let them go. Cabbage is another thing you don't want to mix in with your tomatoes. It again produces some sort of something in the soil that stunts your plants. I can't remember what it's called, what it actually produces, but whatever it puts out can stunt your tomato plants. But since they're kind of just growing, I just kind of want to see what they do. I don't think they'll do anything. Some of these are heading up, just tiny ones though. The other thing that I've seen a ton of in my soil has been worms. Hi, baby boy, what are you doing? Come and say hi. Oh, pretty boy. So this spot, I put this chicken mulch, chicken bedding down last summer. It's getting kind of bright. And I was digging around in here planting stuff, and I couldn't believe the amount of worms that I was seeing. It was great. So look at this soil, y'all. This is the soil that I put out. Look at all the worms. You see that? Look, there's another one. And I got a roly-poly right here. So it's just black. This is just for me putting down, hi Morrow, the chicken bedding. And then I also, in the fall, I put down leaves. And y'all, I mean, that's amazing. Black, rich soil where I used to have clay. Pretty cool. I like this method. It works for me. It's free because my soil previously was just clay. You know, we're out here in Georgia. There's a lot of Georgia clay out here, which it just can be a nightmare to grow in. But so I've just been doing this, putting down the chicken bedding when I clean it out, and then in the fall I've got all the leaves that fall, and then I also am constantly mowing the yard. So I've got lots of different things that I can put down that will slowly just break down over time. So, but it's been working really well so far. Let me show you. So I don't know if I already said this, but I'm gonna be planting peanuts over here. Also, after I dig up my potatoes, I'm gonna plant peanuts there as well. It's a nitrogen fixer, which you need to do after you plant potatoes because they're heavy feeders. But come on, planting peanuts, it's kind of fun. I've never done that before. It's Georgia. I feel like I kind of need to. So I got two different varieties here. This one's the Tennessee Red Veil. Y'all can see that. And then this one is called the Win. And if you see the Win, the white, the reddish one is the Win. And I think, is that how you pronounce it? I think so. I don't know. And then this one is the Red Veil one. It's quite smaller. So I planted both of them. I think I need to water them more. I have them in here. And when they come up, I'm gonna start putting them out in the garden. I've got some tobacco. It's tiny. Tobacco takes forever to grow. I did it last year. And something, oh that's weird, I have a random squash growing in here. Huh, these are elderberry bushes. Anyway, so this is my tobacco, some of them. The soil's still moist in there, but it could probably use a little bit more water. Something just started attacking them, you see that? I never knew what it was. Look though, I planted, these are all daisies. My last garden tour, I think I had mentioned how I had planted daisy seeds here, and here they are. They are starting to make starting to bud up here, so it'll be kind of interesting to see what they do. And these are my black hollyhocks. I planted them in other areas too, but I won't show y'all that yet. In one of my videos last, I was talking about the fish fertilizer. And I'll tell you what, y'all, that is rocket fuel. I've been putting that down, honestly, more than that they say. They said every 3 weeks. I've been putting it down more than that, like twice a week. My tomatoes just got huge all of a sudden. I didn't want to show you all this, but my tomatoes were so small. I was so frustrated because there's some channels I like to watch, and I had planted my tomatoes way before they had, and then their tomatoes were like huge. What am I doing wrong? I realized that a lot of people, when their tomatoes start getting to like a couple leaves, you want to start fertilizing them, and I wasn't doing that. I just assumed, you know, I had put them in soil that had fertilizer in it. I think I got a Miracle-Gro brand, but a few different ones. So I thought they'd be okay until they filled out their little pot, but they just were stunted. So it wasn't until I started putting fish fertilizer down on them. Every time I put stuff down on them, they grew more. So I'm going to be getting another gallon of that. I already went through that gallon. I've been putting it out on everything. And in fact, I kind of think that's why these cabbages started to really take off, is because when I was pouring fish fertilizer out here for the tomatoes and sunflowers and the nasturtiums, it also was getting into the ground for the cabbages. So I think that's why they started taking off. But I'm gonna be getting another gallon of that, and that is going to be my go-to for fertilizing my garden. Come see. Oh, that's another really pretty nasturtium. Aren't these lovely? Got some really pretty flower colors going on here. This is another grape. I've got Vanessa grapes going around each pole here, and then Nate will be building our little pergola that's gonna go above. So these are all my Apache blackberries. I've got them on the outside of my garden here. They've done phenomenal. Last year, I had showed them to you guys and they were still just tiny, and I had just planted them and they've taken off. And they're already starting to produce some flowers. And at the base here, I do have nasturtiums, and this is some creeping thyme that I've been growing everywhere. I'll show you some of the stuff that I started. I started it from seed last year, and they've been taking off, looking really good. So I've got all my blackberries here, and I'm gonna only let them go to about here because this is our little back driveway where we can get the tractor down and stuff. So I do need this to kind of be a road section. So here, once they start popping up beyond this point, you see they're putting up little shoots. I'll stop propagating them and putting them more around the whole garden. You see this area here where the tree came down. This is another road that kind of goes off into the wildwoods. But on each side of the fences here, I want raspberries. I've already got 12 started over here. And as they grow and make shoots, I will start just propagating them all along this lane here. And it will eventually be clear from this massive tree that almost killed me. Not really. Let's see. I need to go check on these. I'm glad I'm doing this because I need to probably come out here and water them. See, some are coming up. Oh, I see. Here at the base. This one's really taken off. See that one? Yeah, I see life on that one too. So these are all my heritage raspberry bushes. I've got 12 total. And it looks like they're all doing good. That's great. I just collected a ton of leaves from the woods and put them down heavy to kind of keep the weeds at bay. Looks like I need to do it again. But let's go check out my strawberries. So here's my sun wheel of strawberries. Looks like I had a little marrow in here earlier, deciding to sit in the patch. These are all Sweet Charlie. I planted these last year as well, and they have been doing phenomenal. Last season we had been picking off all of the flowers so that they would put more of their energy into spreading and getting strong roots, and that seemed to work out great. We've got tons of strawberries. Every day I'm getting like large handfuls of strawberries, and so many of them are already still just producing. Lots of little babies coming up here. You see that? No, it's just been so fun. I enjoy coming out here eating strawberries. In fact, I told the kids if they don't get out here and eat them, I'm going to, because I'm out here in the garden and I want a little snack. Well, guess where I'm coming? I'm coming right here. So it's been really yummy. Look, I got some wild strawberries growing here too. This is a big old butterfly bush. You see, this is some creeping thyme that I planted last year from seed. I've got it all over. These are little hydrangeas. I'll probably do more of a tour over here some other time because this video, I don't want it to be too long. I wanted to show y'all guys some of the things that I've been doing. The sun's starting to really come out here. And the other thing that I like to do, it might be a little bit weird, is I like to let the weeds grow in some spots. You see this? This is all this wild strawberries. I just think they're so pretty. I just let them go. I saw a little spider. See that little guy? He's running off. He's got a little egg on his little butt there. As long as the weeds don't get tall to where they're drowning out the sunlight for my plants, I generally let them grow. That might sound weird to some people, but honestly, there's a lot of weeds that are just pretty, and whatever your soil is growing, that's what it needs. The soil's gonna naturally want to fix itself and provide the nutrients that it needs to be healthy. So when you're always ripping up those weeds, well, you're kind of hurting it in the long run. That's how I think of it. I don't want to fight nature as much as possible. Obviously there's some things that I need to maybe rip up, like I don't want the grass in my yard. But for the most part, I try to let it do its things, allow it to grow what it needs to grow. So you see my garlic row here. It's got quite a bit of weeds growing, but they've just been low enough to the ground, and I've just kind of been letting them do their thing. I'm gonna be planting more buckwheat out here as well. I just need to go get the seeds. I found an interesting bug on my sunflowers. And I looked it up. I look at this color. That's pretty. I looked it up because if I see a bug, I don't want to squish it, because what if it's good, you know? So I try to kind of figure out what it is. The majority of the bugs that are around are good, but then, you know, all it takes is a few of the bad ones to really wreak havoc. So my sunflowers, they're getting quite large. I noticed these funny bugs crawling on them. They looked like little pieces of bark, and they were kind of pointy. And I noticed they were kind of clustering together, and they were making eggs. These weird, and bedding these eggs into my sunflowers. So I found out that they're called tree hoppers. And they aren't necessarily bad for your sunflowers, but what they do is they create a honeydew, similar to like an aphid. So they do attract ants. And I noticed those last year. I just didn't know what they were. And so they embed these little eggs inside the spine of the leaf. And so I honestly got rid of them. I just went around and squished them all. And I kind of gently removed the eggs out of my sunflowers, because I personally just don't want ants all over my sunflowers. It's kind of a nightmare. The ants that are trying to protect their honeydew, they get quite vicious. So even just bumping into my sunflowers or being in my garden, they end up attacking you, and it's scary. So I went ahead and killed all those. So if you see those on your sunflowers, they're not necessarily going to hurt your sunflowers, but they will be attracting ants all over them. So you kind of have to decide what you want there. Bee, what are you whining about? Are you still in here? Come on, sweetie. Come on. I'm right here. Makes that sad meow when he can't find me. One day I was out here in my garden just briefly, so he came out, and then I ran off because we were having a barbecue over to the barbecue area, and just started making that pathetic meow all over the garden. So I called him, and he saw where I was, and he ran over to me. He's so cute. All right, y'all, I think that was all I wanted to show you today. There are definitely more things that I want to share with you, but not yet. So I hope y'all enjoyed that, and we'll see you next time.